I always talk about the importance of local elections and local journalism, and I'm excited to be partnering up with Concord Patch and Concord TV to promote the upcoming city debates that will be going on for offices that are open. And I'm joined today by Tony Schinella. He's the senior field editor for Patch, and specifically he runs the Concord Patch, which I think is one of the best ones of these hyper-local outlets that you can find. So definitely give them a follow on Twitter and Facebook, as well as their website, which I'll link in the episode description. Welcome back to the show, Tony.
Hey, good to see you again, AJ. Thanks for having me.
So you have a whole lot of people you're going to be speaking to during these debates. I mean, how many of these sessions are we talking about?
Oh man! So before I'm shooting to do 13 debates, which will be a personal record. I think the most I've had before is like 5 or 6 in a season. And so 13 is crazy. I had a couple of kind of Politico insiders in the city say to me, well, it's your fault, one said. And I was like, why? And they said, you're constantly telling people to run and they never run. And then they do all run and you're like going, how are you going to get more than a dozen debates booked in 8 weeks? And then the next one said something very similar, but it was like, it's all your fault. It's all your fault. Don't complain, Tony, because I got to figure out a way to do it. And I'm going to do it. I hope I can I think it will be a coup. But I did have to shorten them. Last time they were an hour. So the mayor's race is going to get an hour. The at-large candidates are going to get an hour. And then all of the ward councilors are going to get a half an hour. And then I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the school board races yet. There's 3 of those. I think there's 2 to 3 candidates in each one. So I'm going to try and do those in 30. And I had one other person tell me when I was talking to him, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get it done. I think I'll shrink them down. I was just hashing some ideas out. And this person was very, very kind to me. And they said, well, if you tighten up the questions a little bit, you don't have to introduce the question with multiple sentences before, there's that kind of thing. And I was like, yep, you're right. I'll tighten up all the questions. Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And
you're going to be ready for CNN after this.
Yeah, no. Oh, and it's, I'll do a dry run, of my reads ahead of time to make sure that they're tight, Yeah. What can you do to hold the tax rate at 3%? Not to rattle off all the things that are coming up, but just like, what would you do? How are you going to do to continue that?
Yeah, and that goes perfectly into my next question. I mean, what are some of the big things, starting with the city council, what are some big things that you're going to be questioning them on? I mean, tax rates are a big thing people always talk about. Oh, my road has a pothole. Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. Well, there's all kinds of different things. I think the biggest thing this season, though, is Jim Bouley leaving.
Yeah.
One person described it to me as, I never knew he had so many fingers in the dikes, right? As running the meeting and just trying to address every single person who has an issue in the community. And he's always done a really good job with that and making sure he connects people, with the city manager, this person, that person. It's going to be a huge void, no matter what you think of Jim Bouley, and lots of people do not like him. He always gets elected with 70 to 80% of the vote, so lots of people do love him. But no matter what you think of him, it's going to be really, really hard to fill his shoes and to do all the things that he did. And then you have this other dynamic of who then kind of fills the vacuum and the void. You have 3 interesting people running for mayor. You've got 5 interesting people running for at-large, including 1 incumbent, meaning there's going to be a new at-large councilor. You've got all but 2 of the other 10 seats are challenged. Who knows which way they could go? It's going to be interesting to see. You've got a lot of things going on. You have the construction project queue. You have they've gotten I believe they're up to about $2.5 million to $3 million a year in paving. So as much as we may say these roads are bad and this road needs to be done or whatever, the they can only do so much, right? Pike Industries is one of the subcontractors. Audley is another one. They only have so many people to fill the potholes. They only have so many conveyors to remelt this, scrape the tar and remelt it. There's only so many you can do. It's not like you got 1,000 tar workers, and flaggers and truck drivers, running around the state. There's only so many people that do it, so there's only so much you can do, and the season is only so long, right? 6 or 7 months. So that's one of the big. I've done a couple of stories on that kind of unveiling of why does it take a street 20 years to get redone. Well, they're all on the 15 to 20 year list. They keep moving around, and then sometimes some are so bad with water damage that you're on them all, every 5 years or so, because just the way the ground is. We have brooks, and streams underneath the ground. There's going to be an issue of what to do with the golf course. There's a large faction of golfers in the city and the capital region, business people, and I don't personally play golf. I play softball, but there's a lot of golfers. They want a better clubhouse. It's going to cost millions of dollars. How do we get there? On the school board side, you have a middle school project that's going to be $250 million when all is said and done. 2 years ago, it was going to be $60 million. So, without not including interest, that's just the basic price. And so you've got that issue. You've got all kinds of issues in the schools. The new niche rankings that we did yesterday and today on all of our patch sites in New Hampshire. There's 14 sites. Concord High School is ranked 25th in the top 25. The school district is ranked 25th in the top 25. Now there's, almost 100 school districts in the state of New Hampshire, but that budget's $100 million, and it should be way higher than 25th, and it's not. So you've got all kinds of different dynamics, social emotional learning, psychology issues going on in the schools, arguments over what can we teach and what can we not teach, what books can the kids access at their school libraries, all kinds of different arguments and fights going on, discussions on these boards. The other thing too with the city, and it's really true, city councilors and the mayor, they have a weak system. So it's a strong city manager system, and then the councilors and the mayor are advisors to the city manager. They can get little things done here and there, and they can work in coalitions to get those things done. But it really is the city manager who keeps trains running on time. Many of the things that are the big problem issues in the city, homelessness. We have a homeless crime problem that's exploding in the city. It has been a slow, steady burn for about 10 years due to heroin, and then later meth, and now fentanyl. We used to have a few dozen homeless people. Now we have hundreds. They camp, they move around. There used to be one camp behind the Everett Arena 10 years ago with about 100 people in there. Now we've got 400 to 500 and dozens of camps all around the city. There's arson and fires and drug overdoses, and none of them can really do anything. We're throwing millions of dollars a year, the state, at mental health, and the governor just put together $100 million money for towns to tap into to deal with zoning and other issues to kind of get more units. Merrimack County has a 0.1 vacancy rate for housing. It's going to take us a quarter of a century to get out of it, and all along the way, we're losing all kinds of people, and not a single counselor can do a thing about it. So that's the biggest. Those are paving. Yep. Oh, and one last thing too, solid waste is going to be a huge issue in the next 2 years. The last 10 years of the contract the city had with Casella had a really good rate with recycling, and it used to be 0 to $0 a pound to pick up the recycling. It's $100 a pound to pick up the tip for trash. We've been paying for these awful purple bags that rip apart, that don't work. They're crap. They always have been crap. But it did expand at recycling. Some of us were doing it already. We didn't need to be told. We didn't need a bag tax. We were doing it already, composting and recycling. And now that fee, we had a 10-year contract. That contract's up. And the recycling fee is going to be $100 a pound, just like the trash fee. Oh, wow. And this is going to be it's going to nail the city. By a 7-8 vote, they voted not to rescind the bag tax this last council during the budget hearings. And what's going to happen probably next year or in the next 18 months, is we'll all get the bag tax will be eliminated, and we'll all get a higher property taxes to pay for solid waste. And then they're going to have Casella's going to have automated trucks. We're one of the only cities in the state that doesn't have automated trash pickup. So we'll have to buy a certain recycle bin and a certain trash bin. There's not going to be anybody to check the purple bags, not take them. They're just going to take with the crane, dump it, take with the crane, dump it. And like every other city, most cities have it. Casella says they're not going to lay off anybody. They can take all of their drivers and trash people and move them to other sectors of the company, so there won't be any layoffs on that. And that's where everybody's gone anyway. So that's going to be a huge expense. They still don't want to do a ballpark figure yet, but it's going to be at least 3 to 5. If I had to guess, 3 to 5% tax increase just on solid waste alone.
Wow. And Concord's
it's going to be big.
Some pretty high taxes as it is.
Yeah, Concord has some of the highest property taxes right now. The last time I checked, we are about $8 more per thousand than a city like Nashville, which is the second biggest city. We're the third in New Hampshire. So when you look at, and that comes down to so much state property not being taxed, state-owned property, and limited payment in lieu of taxes to the city for those properties.
Yeah, I mean, is there anyone? I mean, looking at the political makeup, I mean, are we talking basically continuing business as usual with a lot of these candidates? You predict? Do you think there's going to be some people that are going to be throwing the table with some other ideas they may want to start bringing over to the council and such?
Boy, it's hard to see. What is interesting with this field of candidates is they really come from all walks of life. In the past, you always had a bunch of lawyers, a bunch of business people, that kind of thing. You have a lot of moms running or are, I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we have five women. I believe at least 4 are moms. I think so. The 5 out of 15 or 14, 15 with the mayor. Yep. So a third of them are moms right now, or will be in the next council probably. There may be more because there are more women running. There's one woman who's running at large out of the 5. So they bring a different set of values and instincts and issues to the table than, say, the retired gardener. Or I'm thinking of Len Brochu, who used to be on the council years and years ago. He's passed away, but he was the landscaper. He was an at-large councilor. He would top the ticket every 4 years because everybody knew him, Yeah. So you have a bunch of different things. You have a lot of people who are very politically active, mostly in left-wing, very liberal centers, political groups. They have brought a lot of issues to the table around diversity and inclusion. We changed we got rid of the Christopher Columbus holiday. It's now Indigenous Peoples Day in October, even though Indigenous Peoples Day is in August globally. But it's that was an issue. They brought in a lot of descendants from the Native American communities who were settled in this area before the 1600s, and so that was an issue last year. We have a couple of city councilors that believe that people should be paid to sit on committees and should be given child care and transportation costs. So I don't know how that's going to really fit in, but there's an interesting thing to that. There's been a lot of play, and I know you've written some stuff on Twitter too about some of the candidates that you're seeing. Yeah. They're almost making the case that at least for should the city provide daycare for city councilors? Most people would say no, but should city councilors be paid more than $1,000 a year and let them pay for their own daycare, or they wanted to vote for a $50 an hour fee for people to attend the diversity meetings, which were booked at like noon on a Friday. It was a ridiculous time to book that meeting. It should be, after dinner time, 5 or 6 or 7 o'clock.
Like
every other important meeting, right? You don't do it at noon on a Friday. I mean, none of those things should, you want to have a little subcommittee meeting with a handful of people about where to put a sign. Yeah, okay, do that at noon. Yeah. You get the DPW guy, you get a counselor there, legal, whatever, they're already working, you get that done. Anything that is big, that has meaningful discussion about any issue, ZBA, planning, if you really want people to attend those things, they should be done at a reasonable hour in the early evening. But I thought about and I tried to figure out how many hours. What if you paid everybody who was on a planning board ZBA? I mean, planning board and ZBA meetings are like 3 hours long. There's like 5 or 6 people on the planning board. That's about 18 hours a month that they all so that's about $1,000 for that one meeting if they were paid, a month. So it's like, okay, so that would be about $12,000 to pay those people a stipend to show up for meetings that they've done for free for generations. Yeah. That price tag can add up if you start doing that. I mean, there's like 50 boards. I mean, so. But that should be, as wackadoodle as that idea may seem to some people, and I think I don't really think we should be paying people to attend meetings. I think you should want to be a part of it like everybody else.
Civil service.
Yep, that's a society. We all have to contribute to the society. But let's talk about it. And why not talk about it? Planning. Dave Parker, who runs Parker Academy, a really good guy, used to be on the school board. He was on the school board for one term, ran for city council, didn't win. He was on planning board. I think he said 15 years. It was like forever. And then he wanted to do something else. But he was really smart. He has a business and he knows things. But if you totaled up his hours, I mean, he could have probably, who knows how much money he could have earned in all those hours. I mean, so that's the type of commitment a lot of people do for free. How do you put a price tag on it? How do you put a price tag on anybody else who's already done it for free? And do we want that? That's a worthy, I don't think it's a good idea, but you should talk about it. And frankly, the solution to providing daycare for city councilors, or we have a mayoral candidate who doesn't have a car, and she wants people to pay for her Uber so she can attend meetings. That's fine. Let's have that discussion. But the solution isn't the taxpayers pay for her Ubers or taxi. The solution is maybe the mayor should make more than $1,000. Right. Maybe the mayor should make $5,000 a year.
Yeah, it doesn't. And
then they can pay for their own stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's necessarily we're going to be giving these people all $50,000 a year stipend for doing this, but maybe it needs to be adjusted a little bit to compensate for little things because of inflation and the cost of existing nowadays, especially where you like the mayoral individual is a single parent, as far as I'm aware of, and there's other people that two-income families where both parents are working, and I know was definitely the case for many of the city council members. Yep. So it's little adjustments. We should have that discussion definitely in that debate, and not immediately jump to craziness. As knee-jerk reactionary it would be to kind of kick them for saying such things. I think it's the approach is what needs to be worked on with some of these topics.
Yep, and I think too, and this is really important because if you sat down and you counted what a city councilor attends in meetings and subcommittee meetings, and you divide it by 1,000, it's pennies an hour. It isn't even minimum wage.
Right.
Now, you don't do it to be paid. That's not what it's about. It's not about being paid. It's about wanting to contribute. But can it be $5,000? Can it be $3,000 instead of $1,000? And you could say to ex-dad who needs childcare, and you know, maybe they're not a lawyer or not rich, and they want to be a city councilor. Well, you know, it's going to be $3,000 instead of one, or X, whatever that is. And you take your gas money and your you know, your coffee money and your daycare money out of that fund that you get paid instead of 1,000. I think that's a legit thing. I don't think the city council or the city should be in the daycare business. That's different, you know.
All right, we're about out of time on this segment, but this is going to be fascinating to hear what happens with these debates. We'll probably do a couple different segments on a wrap. I'm assuming the mayoral debate's probably going to be a whole separate conversation with us diving into some of the issues that are going to be around that, because there are some, even though they're Democrats, they're coming from different perspectives, that's for sure, for the people that are running on that ticket. But if people want to check out the debates as they happen, what should people do?
You can go to the Concord, New Hampshire Patch website. I'll be posting a little story with an embed of the videos of each of the debates after they happen. I'm gonna, you know, they won't all be in the same day, but there'll be one a day, and then they'll be linked into a voter's guide at some point with all of the links, so people can look at all of them, you know, archived to find out what what's going on election day.
Awesome, and
then before you know it, it'll be here.
I know, right? And we'll be doing a wrap before that happens, so people can be prepared for it, and I'll also be sharing them on the New England Take feeds. If you look up at New England Take, as well as the newenglandtake.com. Civic engagement is important. Be aware of the candidates you're voting for, because hey, guess what? Your tax rate, your school options, and things like that, and so much more are definitely going to be involved in that. So, Tony Schinella with Concord Patch, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, it was great. Thanks for having me.
newenglandtake.com, like and subscribe, and check out the podcast feed. You can get it 5 a.m. bright and early on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we'll actually be having an extra episode this Friday where I'll be covering the Americans for Prosperity immigration event that's going on Thursday evening. So check out the AFP event, because it should be an interesting conversation, and then check out the video Friday from that event. Talk to you soon.